So what is it that we're missing as a society? What is the one piece that we have to put in, and you can't live without this one piece? Is it knowledge? Got to have knowledge. Compassion. We have to be compassionate. Common sense. Facts. Common decency. Truth. I think the fundamental cornerstone of any civil society is truth. And right now, we don't even know how to find truth. We don't even care about the truth anymore many times. Beyond limited truth, there is one absolute truth, which is totally and all-embracing. But it is indescribable because it is God, or shall I say, rather, God is truth. Other things, therefore, can only be true in a relative sense, end quote. That's Gandhi. Now, I know people on the left used to love Gandhi. I don't know if they do anymore. They used to love Martin Luther King, but he's not woke enough anymore. But they spoke of the same truth. You must have truth. But we don't even not look for truth anymore. We deny truth. And then on top of it, we dismiss all facts. We don't even look for facts, let alone the truth. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Hong Kong. Right now, there is a fight for truth so intense. And I'm watching these people and I'm thinking, I'm watching dead people walking. Because I know what China is. I know the technology that China is developing. I know that China is going to win Hong Kong and then eventually Taiwan. But before the protests spread into a global movement centered on the fight for truth, justice, and freedom, do you know how this started? This is like the shot that was heard around the world. Remember? That was the American Revolution. It started with one shot. So what started this? Believe it or not, it's a love story. 19-year-old took his 20-year-old girlfriend to Taiwan for Valentine's Day for a trip. At some point, they posted a selfie together on Facebook with pink lipstick emojis on their faces. But later, alone in the hotel room, the girl told her boyfriend that she was pregnant. Now, I don't know if he was overjoyed or worried or uncertain, maybe a mix of all three, but the mood certainly darkened once she told him that he was not the father. In one swift move, he slammed her head against the wall. Then he strangled her until she stopped breathing and stopped moving. He shoved her body then into a suitcase and then went to bed. The next morning, he searched for somewhere to dump the body. He traveled 15 railway stations away to a public park. He was carrying his suitcase with his girlfriend in it. He dumped the body inside a thicket of bushes, keeping her most valuable belongings and then chucking everything else. Then he withdrew roughly $650 in Taiwanese money from the ATM using her card. He would eventually withdraw another $2,000 before flying home to Hong Kong. And that's where he was arrested. He was arrested there the same day that the Taiwanese police discovered the girl's body. She had been 3 months pregnant. So how the heck does this turn in to 2 million people on the streets? The problem was he made it out of Taiwan. If he had never made it out of Taiwan, this wouldn't have happened. If the Taiwanese police would have caught him at the airport, if only. But he landed in Hong Kong where officials had no idea what to do with him. They couldn't charge him with a murder he'd committed because it was in Taiwan. And unbelievably, they couldn't extradite him because Hong Kong has no formal extradition agreement with Taiwan. Coincidentally, Hong Kong also has no official extradition agreement with China either. So in other words, there was no law that could stop him. He hadn't committed murder in Hong Kong. There was no place to send him. It was a series of really dangerous loopholes. Now, Hong Kong is a semi-autonomous state. It belonged to the British for about, 160 years or so. And that ended in 1997. And Great Britain handed it over to China. By that time, it had spent about 100 years being Western. So it was English. It was very, very Western. Communist mainland China didn't like that, but they agreed to allow Hong Kong to remain, their own independent power, even mandating its own constitution, the basic law of Hong Kong. The people of Hong Kong have always been leery of China because they have a strange look at and a strange system of communism and, also has a habits of making political dissidents vanish. They're building concentration camps. They have a deadly rule of law. And because this whole thing was like, where do we send this guy? Well, we'll send him to China. Wait a minute, you can't do that. The protesters have unified behind 5 demands. They want a withdrawal of the extradition bill because they know, sure, this guy, if you want to talk about the Bubba effect, this guy, he was wrong, but we'll deal with him here. We're not sending him to China because you're part of the problem. And we don't want our citizens being shipped over to China because you'll start making people disappear. They also want, the second demand, the Chinese government must stop calling them rioters. They're protesters, they say, not rioters. 3, any protesters who have been arrested have to be let free and exonerated. 4, an independent commission must look into police use of force during the protests. And 5, universal suffrage. Yesterday, maybe it was the day before, news broke out that Twitter had suspended roughly 1,000 Chinese accounts and banned advertisements from the state-owned media companies pushing pro-China propaganda through social media. Facebook has also taken steps to combat the spread of anti-Hong Kong propaganda. Each day, it becomes clearer and clearer. The ordinary men and women in Hong Kong are fighting for something extraordinary. But to do so, they have to harness the power of the individual. Each person must find the power within them to stand. And it needs to take all of them. This isn't the work that just a few protesters or even 1.7 million protesters will take care of. Because China doesn't care.